Good morning. Happy June. Uh, Anniversaries bump for this. Yep. Right here. Right here. Very, very. And you know what? This could be considering a part two. Obviously, you see the white t shirt on. Bring it up gently like this. Yep. hmm Very, very proud of this station. And actually, I know. You know what? I'm a radio geek. Keep this in mind. And you know, what's going on with my life right now, these guys in radio spend a lot of laughs, some classics, good newsworthy items, and I'm going to talk this in general in the Hudson Valley, but basically for this station to be there in my at my beginning stages, and by the way, in tribute, coffee's included, and there's no bourbon, no nothing in here, believe me. But this is basically a cup of coffee, breakfast blend, and I'm going to sing also a very happy. Well, I'll do that at the end. But anyway, this is Charlie Chaz from CJ3 Productions. How are you on this today? As you mentioned before, I did my 70th entry on this. This is my 71st, well, technically 71st entry um, in a very, very special way. You know, in the business of, being in telecommunications or in filmmaking or in the telecommunication business, filmmaking, journalism, broadcast journalism, all calls from the heart. Now, keep this in mind. I have an associate's in applied science from an amazing college up in Central New York called Herkimer County Community College, and we also called it Harvard on the Hill. And then 2 years later, I get my bachelor's at a great market in Buffalo State, where many rock stations are up there, and how I got hooked into actually take that back a little bit more, landing a job. Well, not landing a job, but it was basically an experience at a close campus radio station with WHCR, Herkimer College Radio, and then obviously with WBNY, Buffalo's only original alternative at 91.3 for 2 years, and it was absolutely and then it keeps blossoming. Now, I got my first job at the original 97.3 WZAD Wurtsboro, Middletown. And here we are, a kid pursuing his dream, but in relative how this all started back, it's going to be with this. So WZAD Wurtsboro, Middletown, and then came up to WVOS AM and FM in Liberty, New York. Not forgetting those guys, because that's really my home staple. And again, best local radio, and how it transformed from Mountain Broadcasting Company to the local media group. Totally amazing. So, but this one is definitely special to me. Okay, because in high school, back in the good old days at Tri Valley Central School, we had so many radio stations around here. We had the Poughkeepsie market, and then we had like WVOS, WSUL back in the day, SPK out of Poughkeepsie, even down in Middletown, New York at the Arterial with WKOJ and Wall Radio. Now, simple times back in the 70s, the 80s, they've always told great information about even a school closing or something terrible happened or very newsworthy, and it's all about the music. And really, now while here in Sullivan County, for Sullivan County's first station back in 1947, now keep this in mind, basically classic hits, basically really adult remembering, with this. So, kudos going to, from my old crew to what's happening now. But I would say I'm trying to read, because 1976 was kind of a little foggy for me. Keep this in mind. I was a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and just listening to, again, local radio station. It started maybe about the 1980s, 81, 82, and listening to what else is out there. I mean, hardly there was no country back in the day. I mean, there was maybe some crossover country hits. I'll take that. I'll give you that for an example. There was some crossover country, but basically it was down in New York City or on Long Island or somewhere, with these bigger markets. Now, here's a lone station. I always wanted to grow my musical taste up. I want to definitely listen to a little bit more. And that's how album-oriented rock, AOR, the classic AOR stations. Keep that in mind. Back in the day, it was classic. It was definitely AOR stations and playing, everything underneath the sun, everything originality and whatnot. So, and I did know of a radio station down in New York City called, at 102.7 WNEW, for rock and roll. Well, 2 hour, going up for about an hour and a half drive to Poughkeepsie, New York, there's a station on 101.5. And it was in, the coverage area went out to the northern part of Grahamsville, Ulster County, Dutchess is part of the Hudson Valley. And this station, the call letters were PD, WPDH, which means Poughkeepsie, Dutchess, and the Hudson Valley, or Hudson, So those that little like fogginess, I don't remember, but I heard about rock music. I knew about the Beatles. I knew about Led Zeppelin. I knew about Rolling Stones. We all knew about Elvis Presley back in the day, believe me. And, Bob Dylan, Woodstock. Keep this in mind. I'm in a territory, not too far from here. By the way, happy 20th anniversary to Bethel Woods Performing Arts Center, a.k.a. Woodstock to me. And Woodstock has been around quite a while. Let me tell you something. So there's some music, it's the vast part of this valley and this part of New York State that makes it so proud that I'm being a New Yorker, an upstate New Yorker, and listening to great artists, great local bands and whatnot. So as time kind of get onto it, I'm starting to, about in the mid 80s, like, 84, 85, 86. It was very, very cool. This was like my high school years. And notably, they've been doing like these special weekends, or specialty nights. And it all started, excuse me. It all started with a great memory. And listening to, in the mornings, the late Stu Shantz of the morning show. Anybody remember late Stu Shantz? And then there was like Pam Brooks, Robin Taylor, Matt Walsh on 8 o'clock Rock Block. Matt Walsh took care of the evening hours of it. And there's like obviously the OB, Greg O'Brien in that mix in there. Actually, Robin Taylor did middays, phenomenal, obviously with a whole lot of lunch. And it was always kind of cool because when I got home from college and whatnot, it was always great to hear some great rock and roll. Now, keep this in mind, as a kid, I did have, back in the day, calendar, the WPDH 10th anniversary calendar. And it was all the great pictures, and obviously, obviously you had the calendar on the bottom, and then on top you had all the musicians that played in the area, especially from the Chants and Poughkeepsie. And I wish that place would open again. That was a great rock venue. Many artists was going through, even at Orange County Fair Speedway. Anybody, they were rocking in Middletown, and you got to hear that what's going on for the summer. Oh, you got ZZ Top, you got 38 Special, you got different other bands that was there. Art, And it was just a great mix and everything else. So my first time was listening to WPDH, besides VOS in the morning and the legend Mike Sikel, obviously at that time. But across the river was still 8 Stew Chants, and that was really my first time. So, and then with like I said, with the opportunity of being on live radio and getting, here we go with the reel to reel. The reel to reel made it all happen. It's not like this technology stuff that we have right now. And besides, with having a trained ear, I know when it's voice tracked and when it's live. So, is it live or memory, as they say it. So, during the journey, like for at least a good 2 years, or about a good year and a half, I started writing out a list and sending it out to, WPDH in Poughkeepsie. And I said, may I please have this list played for the 8 o'clock rock block? So be it. I get a call, and it's Matt Walsh. I'm like, oh my God, my list has been, like, what? This is absolutely phenomenal. So obviously, back in the day, it was a big sponsor, and here I am saying, this is the so-and-so, this is WPDH, so-and-so, 8 o'clock rock block. And, did the ad, and then I go, my name is Chuck Martin from Grahamsville, New York, and I kicked it off with my very first set was Twisted Sister, I Wanna Rock. And then, obviously the other tunes were like with Molly Hatchet in there, different other bands. And I did it for at least 4 or 5 times. And it was absolutely genuine. And obviously the promo department, the promotions department, hey, you did a great job. And it's like, here's a t-shirt of the classic. And then with the classic logo rather, it was, I remember getting a t-shirt with WPDH up front, 101.5. It was a t-shirt. It was in white with green and whatnot. And then you had the logo. And then in the back it said Rock Blocker. And I'm like, I love it. I love it. I love it. So times have changed. I went to college, did, with it, what I had to do. And then I started working normally, as a hard worker, because the broadcasting arts was still there. It's all about the diaphragm, the attitude, and, being out in the public. So that was one of the most awesome memories growing up and listening to, PDH. Now, there was like bigger events during, we're going from 86, 87, 88. I was in college. 90, I get back and get my job. And then here I am. I'm, okay, this is my turn to shine. So I make my commit, I made, fantastic friendship. And really, they're my radio brothers and sisters. Seriously. So, and I'm very proud to say it because these guys are amazing. I loved it. I love this crew. And, with the changes that, so, and there were years with, I mentioned Stu Shantz, and then obviously, in the 90s now, keep this in mind, I'm a very much of a Bills fan for the rest of my life. I knew about Cooper, Mark Cooper. God bless you, brother. Wish you were here, buddy. Wish you were here. You were absolutely amazing. So was, Cooper and his, with his, thing. And I'm like, listening to that. Because when I get off done, I was like, okay, let's check across the river, see what's going on. But this time there was like so many changes going on. Robin Taylor was still there. There was Joe Sussman back in the day. Very cool. As a matter of fact, fun fact, because they had a PDH listener party at the Orange County Fair Speedway. And lo and behold, a local artist by the name of Don Lewis, of the Don Lewis Band. Very successful, covered, but he was also known for, he made his Just Do. So here I am at the events, and Don Lewis opened up for 38 Special. I was like, wow, this was absolutely amazing. So lo and behold, Joe Sussman gave me, a vinyl, and it was one of the proudest moments that I've ever gotten. And obviously it's one of the classic, it's a classic album, and it was Rageful Order from Queensryche. I was like set for life with this thing. So here I am, giddy with it, and this was great because I was doing this. So there, I wish I had more pictures for that, but beside the point. So as that grew on, I got to meet amazing individuals like Jack George, the amazing Jack George. Thank you. Um, got a chance to talk to Liz Fox as well. In that, too. And then obviously Coop's, the show with Coop was absolutely amazing. You had John Tobin, got pictures from him, and obviously during the summer I usually come down for a Renegades baseball game. It's like, and then I hear right off of Route 9, off of near Poughkeepsie, they were doing the Roofathon. I said, this is something I have to witness. So I went down there each of the times that they did the Roofathon for the Radiothon for a great organization back in the day, and everything was kept here in the Hudson Valley. So I go check out the table. Oh yeah, I purchased a couple things in here and there, but someone kind of flagged me. It's like, come here, you want to go up? You want to go up there? Yeah, of course. So here I am. I'm with the gods, okay. And at that time, I was, and it felt great, me, knowing some of these guys because I met through at the time in Hudson Valley at the Renegade games, and here's Rick Solzer, former sports director, sports announcer. He, obviously, Zols knows how to do everything. So God bless you, Zols, and I'm glad you're doing very, very well with what's going on. There was Tobin, obviously, Cooper, obviously, and I got many of the parody discs from back in the day, and the legendary and really one of the best producers ever. Very funny. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely out of this world. The late Mad Mike himself, Mike Colvin. And God bless you, brother. And it's one of the funny things is I got a couple pictures with that as well. I mean, here's Tobin, Tobin with his Jets hat on. I have my Bills hat on. And then here's Mike with different jerseys. Here I am with the shirt, and even with the Woodstock shirt that, obviously Woodstock back in, obviously we did the Day in the Garden over there, and which was great. So I'm showing, oh yeah, it was a good time. So, but it was just that, the connection with people and the connection with the radio community from really helping it all. So, and I appreciate what you guys have done in one way or another. And then obviously I got to meet the Tigman. Tigman and I, we talk about Kiss, we talk about, Rob Fuso, the, everybody who's, who knows somebody here. It was absolutely a dream. So there's a couple of pictures, and then here we go. Here we are, later on, catching up with Tigman recently in, over in Middletown. And I said, yeah, we're it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I finally gotten down here, getting to see you. And, I don't show my weaknesses. I don't show my illness. I mean, I'm a warrior, definitely a warrior in one way or another. And how times changed, and it's like, you know what? I still remember the good old days. In fact, there were the Road Warriors out there. Madison, obviously, I have to bring up because, I saw Madison for the very first time since the Roofathon days. So, but leading into this too, Midday's gotten stronger with Hopkins, and thank you Hopkins for playing my request. Now I know I get a little bit eclectic or eccentric, yet it's like this was originally rock and roll, album oriented rock that you played years ago. Sure, there's progressive rock. I love Peter Gabriel, Rush, um, even Led Zeppelin was progressive back in the day. But there were other bands that would make it. So absolutely a charm. It was absolutely amazing. So there's Hopkins. There's Sigman. Obviously now times have changed, and this is what I love about this year. Obviously, this past week, actually as of last week, and by the way, hello, Boris. Boris, you're doing a great job, by the way. And Jenna, you're doing fantastic. And the news people, oh my God, Lane Majority. Um, oh God, there's so many names I can remember. We call him Six because he looked like Six to Smitty, and his baritone and the voice and the diaphragm with it. And it's just that it was like that. So it was like you could hear this. And then obviously with the Halloween party, the breakfast thing with the amazing Jonathan down there. So here I'm in the garb, and then so I'm like looking out like, oh my God, this is too funny. This is too hysterical. And yet going out to these live events and just supporting and just being, as a listener, but also a part of the huge radio television family in the Hudson Valley. So to the amazing times, and really on this first day of June, 2026, I raise my cup to you. I raise my cup to you. Let me take a sip and do this to you guys. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, WPDH at 50. Happy birthday to you. There you go. And I know there's a lot more, so keep this in mind because it's chemo brain, it's got pancreatic and liver cancer. I'm living the dream, doing what I want, doing make sure my voice is heard out. And really, the last, when I graduated back in 1986 was a very special one because I dedicated it to my class and with Led Zeppelin, Over the Hill and Far Away. And then my last song was Night Ranger, Goodbye. Now, it's not goodbye. It's definitely, I'll see you very soon. And really, don't forget about me. And obviously, with playing with Whitesnake with Here I Go Again, and Def Leppard with Hysteria, with all the other major, things. So, again, congratulations, WPDH, the home of rock and roll for 50 years, and a great job. So, and on this note, keep on fighting, keep reaching, keep your feet on the ground, but yet keep reaching for the stars. Always, and long live rock. From The Who, long live rock. And this is a great day to celebrate. So again, happy birthday, WPDH, all the best. And I have actually, I'm gonna put a list that I created, a playlist that I put on Spotify, on the one of the music format, the apps. And I'm gonna show you that real list of what they played compared to what we have now. So, but yeah, again. I meant to really tell you about the A to Z weekend. It was perfectly planned. Because here I am, I'm thinking, still in radio. During the middays, it was great, with all the music from the A to Z. And they landed at, from Memorial Day weekend, all through the stretch of last week. And then now, here it is, June 1st, going to the Ys and Zs. And I'll tell you something, that is absolutely perfect radio programming, especially with a legendary station that did it all. So, my hat to you guys, tip my hat, have my sip of coffee. Again, happy birthday, happy 50th birthday, WPDH. All the best and many, many more. This is Charlie Chaz. from CGM3 Production. So let's put it this way: it's Chuck Martin. Okay, still got it, and let's just keep rock and roll, and long live rock, and don't give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. We'll see you around. Take care.